Hello everyone. So we are now in lesson 5, characteristics of the 21st century assessment. Inevitably, the 21st century is here, bringing a lot of changes in the teaching and learning process. One area that is greatly affected is the assessment of the 21st century learners. The 21st century skills of the learners need to be considered in the assessment process. This lesson focuses on the different characteristics of the 21st century assessment. So we have 8 21st century assessment characteristics to talk about today. The first one is responsive. An assessment is responsive if we can see visible performance-based work, generates data that inform curriculum and instruction. So it seemed that from assessment, you can make intervention towards the instruction. So let's try to have an example on responsive. By the way, credits to the owner of the PowerPoint. I just have it from the internet, and I think it's a very good source of our lesson, so I made use of this one. This is an example. In my Literature 11 class, I discussed about literature and some literary works. For me, to know if the class understood the lesson, I will conduct a formative assessment. In a 1/4 sheet of paper, the students will answer the question, how does literature mirrors your life? And what literary work that mirrors your life? Therefore, in this one, in responsive characteristic, there's a need for a formative assessment. So the teacher conducts formative assessment for it to be responsive of the students, what the students know and can do. Second, in the 21st century, assessment should be flexible. It needs to be adaptable to the student settings. Rather than the identical approach that works in the traditional assessment, 21st century assessment or approaches are more versatile. So it's adaptable, versatile. Let's have an example. In my Principles of Teaching 1 class, I let my students have a survey on their multiple intelligences. After that, I grouped my students according to their intelligences and let them have a creative presentation. So for this one, for the flexible characteristic, usually we look into the learner's preference, we look into the learner's background, and we look into the learner's intelligences and learning styles. Integrated. Assessment entails integration if these are incorporated in day-to-day practice rather than an add-on at the end of the instruction or during a specific week of the school calendar. So when we say integrated, the assessment is already embedded in this instruction. So you cannot say that assessment only happens at the end. It will be done or it could be done also before and during, not only at the end. Because at this time, assessment and instruction are already married together. They are already integrated from one another. So now we have what we call as assessment strategies, which we also consider as instructional strategies. We have here an example. I assess my students from time to time because assessments are not just given at the end. I give my students formative assessments rather just giving them summative assessments. So to have assessments before and during, you can have formative assessment rather than having only summative. assessment. Oral questions or check-up quiz, that's also formative assessment. By the way, quizzes are formative assessments. When you say summative assessments, it's more on the periodical exam, the unit test. Assessment should be informative. The desired 21st century goals and objectives are clearly stated and explicitly taught. Students display the range of emerging knowledge and skills. Exemplars routinely guide students toward achievement of targets. So let's try to look into what is formative assessment using an example. But based on this one, it's more on giving clear objectives, or before we set our class, we will give the students the objectives of the lesson for the day so that they will be guided. Okay, this is the example. Before I start my class, I see to it that my students are aware of the goals and objectives. With that, my students will be guided with their achievements. So if you will be having your demonstration teaching, before you start the lesson, you need to share to the learners the objectives for the day so that they will be guided what will happen in the lesson. Multiple methods. An assessment continuum that includes a spectrum of strategies is the norm. So when you say multiple methods, there are different assessment tools that you'll be using or assessment strategies. Like you can have multiple choice, you can have fill in the blanks, but you could also have performance-based assessments, portfolio, you can have self-assessment and the like. So here is the example. My students have different intelligences, so I see to it that I don't focus on only one way of assessing their learning. So not only traditional, also use alternative because not all of the learners are their intelligences are more on the cognitive. Others have bodily kinesthetic intelligences, naturalistic, and the like. Next, communicated. Assessment should be communicated. Communication of assessment data is clear and transparent to all stakeholders. So you need to uh, show the grades of the students to them, to the students and their parents, as well as other stakeholders. Also to the principal, if there's a need, or to those who are giving scholarship. Example, I let my students keep track of their progress by returning their papers or evaluation sheet. I also see to it that I submit my students' grade on time for their parents to be aware of their child or children's achievements. For this example, it's clearly stated that we need to return the papers of the students right after we're done checking it. That's for feedbacking purposes. Because if you will not give feedback to the students, they will not learn. And we need to give the parents grades because they need to be aware of what is the achievement of their child. Because if it happens that the student failed because you were not able to give feedback to the parents, then it's a teacher's fault because there should be an intervention to be done. And if it was not when the feedbacking did not happen, then there's a problem on the part of the teacher. Technically sound. Adjustments and accommodations are made in the assessment process to meet the students' needs and fairness. So when we say technically sound, our assessment should be fair and It should accommodate students' needs. For example, I make sure that my assessments are valid, reliable, and supports comparisons since students have different intelligences, beliefs, gender, and socioeconomic groups. So in this one, we need to look into the validity and reliability of our assessment. For an assessment to be valid, what are we doing? The test should measure what it's supposed to measure. For a test to be reliable, it should be consistent. Yeah. If we have a traditional assessment like multiple choice, for it to be reliable, we use item analysis. Systemic. 21st century assessment is part of a comprehensive and well-aligned assessment system that is balanced and inclusive for all students, constituents, and stakeholders, and designed to support improvement at all levels. Let's have an example. Changes are inevitable, so I make sure that I am able to identify the needs of my students and the community. With that, I will be able to develop my students into globally competitive individuals. So in this one, our system is comprehensive and well aligned. So we are producing globally competitive learners or graduates. Let's try to have this activity. So uh, we have here some questions. We need to identify what characteristic is asked. So let's try. Assessment need to be adaptable to student settings. What do you think is the correct answer? Assessment need to be adaptable to students settings. When you say adaptable, it is flexible. So when you say adaptable, it is flexible. Or the other term used is uh, versatile. So this one, the answer is flexible. Number two, assessment should also be fair to ethnic, gender, and socioeconomic groups. When you say fairness, it is more on assessment to be technically sound. The answer here is technically sound. Number three, students as well as their parents keep track of their achievements. So here, students and the parents know the progress. The answer here is communicated. There is a communication between the teacher and the student and the teacher and the parent in terms of the learner's progress. Communicated, number three. Number four, Miss Pangatungan uses different strategies and techniques in assessing her students. Different strategies, that is multiple methods. Number four, multiple methods. Number five, after every discussion, Mr. Tamsi let his students answer a checkup quiz. So if you have a checkup quiz, so the assessment is already embedded and it is usually placed as a formative assessment, the checkup quiz. So this is integrated. Number five, integrate. Number six, Ms. Trajano asked us to give our insights for today's lessons. When the learners were asked of insights, the assessment team seemed to be responsive. Responsive. So it's more on knowing learners and needs or looking into their insights. Okay, number seven. 21st century assessment is balanced and inclusive of all students, constituents, and stakeholders. If you have a balanced assessment, this is let 7 systemic, no, balanced, inclusive. It considers all, so therefore it's on the system. That's systemic. For 8, Mr. Limpangog always shares the objectives to us before the lesson proper. If you start with the objectives before the lesson, you will have informative. So the students are informed. Number 9, assessment data is clear and transparent for all stakeholders. When you have it clear and transparent for all stakeholders, that is communicated. Communicated, number 9. Number 10, Miss Umpad asked us for a 1H sheet of paper. There she wrote our grade for the prelim, which is 1.0. So if you are giving feedback on the learner, that is communicated. Communicated, number 10. So here's the summary of the answer. Okay, number 1, flexible. Number 2, technically sound. Number 3, communicated. Number 4, multi-methods or multiple methods. Number 5, integrated. 6, responsive. 7, systemic. 8, informative. 9, communicated. 10, communicated. That's all. Thank you.